All right, good morning. How you all doing? This beautiful 17th day of March. It's a chilly morning here in Nairobi, Kenya, but hopefully you're well, whatever it is that you're joining us from. Hope you had a great weekend, but thank you so much for making the time to be here with us. Like I always say, I know you're busy people, but you do take the time to be here with us, and we definitely do not take that for granted. So for the sake of guys who are new here, John Bogo is my name. I'm a trader with Afriforex. Afriforex, like we always say, is a trading unit. It's not a one-man show, so we do have the rest of the team here. They're working in the back office. So in case you do have any questions, feel free to ask them on the chat box. The team will be getting back to you. But I will also be looking at the questions also in the chat box, but towards the very tail end of this session. But like we always say, you don't really need to wait until the very end. You still can ask your questions even as the session does end up progressing on. And of course, that goes out to the guys who are live here with us. For the guys who are going to be watching this later on, of course, if you do have any comments or feedback, feel free to write them in the comment section, but also feel free to reach out to us. Our contact details are right there in the video description. So remember to give us a like and a subscribe. That does help our channel. So we're going to jump straight into it, and we'll start off by looking at the watch list. So let me see if I can get that out real quick. So of course, we'll start in comparison to what we had on Friday. So you can't see today what the watch list is looking like. Hopefully you can end up taking note of that. The only difference between what we had on Friday and today is the Canadian dollar, which has gone to the buy side of things. That's the only change. Everything else does end up remaining put. So we'll start off by looking at the currency pairs that we had on Friday that unfortunately did not make it to our watch list today. Let's see what we can learn from what happened, so that at least that will make our trading much better today, and of course moving forward. So the European dollar, the euro rather, against the Canadian dollar. For this one on Friday, we're trying to see whether we could get some buying opportunities. So you can see the three areas right there that I had pointed out. So in the morning, price was somewhere here. So I had pointed out that we're expecting maybe to get price just dipping down within this region here. And if we did get the buyers showing up and the price holding within this region right here, we could have possibly looked for some buying opportunities. And you can see that's exactly what the market did. So the sellers came down, the buyers pushed up. If you look at how the buyers pushed up, this was the aggression that we wanted to see and we were talking about. So price came back up, held to the upside of this region. And from there, you can see that if you did take buys within there, at least even if you did have your stops within here, or if you're some sort of cowboy, maybe somewhere within this region here, at least you can see that the market did really take off to the upside, even taking out this region right here, coming all the way up till within that region at the top right there. And of course, you did need to do some money management within there, or at least close your trade, because you can't see that off that region, the market did push to the downside quite aggressively. Something also to do with the Canadian news events that were coming out during the US session on Friday. And of course, that strength, I guess, did possibly start to show up on the Canadian dollar, and the market did come to the downside. But nonetheless, at least the buy that we wanted to see did work out quite well. So the next one, this is the New Zealand dollar against the Canadian dollar. So for this one, on Friday, we're trying to see whether we could get buys. You can't see the three areas I had pointed out and what the game plan was. So Friday morning, price was somewhere here. When we're looking at the charts, I talked about possibly getting price breaking above this region to the upside. If we did get a hold, you could look for some buying opportunities on the pullback. I mean, if you did get some buying opportunities when the market came back in within this region, at around 435 during the New York Stock Exchange open, that would have been fine. But you can see that the buy really struggled, to push to the upside. But like we always point out, I mean, map out the highest level that the market gets to. If you get buys down here, at least that should be your first problem area. You can't see that's exactly where the market seems to be held hostage. So that one worked out. Not really the best of opportunities. And, we wanted to see the market make higher highs and higher lows. But at least in terms of a buy, just going up till the next problem area, I guess that's all the market could give. And, if that's what the market gives, then that's what you should be taking. So the next one, this is the Great British Pound against the Canadian dollar. So for this one on Friday, we're trying to see whether we could get some buys. This one really struggled to push to the upside, but I think also something to do with the Great British Pound. So Friday morning, price was here. I pointed out we wanted to see the market maybe calm down because it did seem like possibly it could maybe tap within these regions and maybe we could have gotten some aggression of the buyers. The buyers started to show up, but unfortunately, they just couldn't maintain price above this region to the upside. And unfortunately, you can't see that the market came down. And of course, like I pointed out, due to the card news events that came out on Friday, which started to show and give some strength to the Canadian dollar. I guess that's the reason why that one just ended up coming down. But like I pointed out, there was possibly something up with the Great British Pound on Friday as well. The strength wasn't really coming in. I guess the big boys were not fully in terms of hitting buys on the GBPs, but hopefully let's see what happens today. There are some GBP news events that came out that should indicate that some strength should be coming in on the GBP. So we'll be waiting to see what happens on that front today. So the next one, the Australian dollar against the Canadian dollar. For this one on Friday, we're trying to see whether we could get some buying opportunities as well. So you can see the three areas I had pointed out and what the game plan was. We're expecting to get a pullback. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, or maybe the market breaking to the upside of this area, moving up. Unfortunately, we just couldn't get price breaking and holding to the upside. All the market did was probe within that area, and you can see that the market really struggled, even moving into today. And unfortunately, not really a currency pair. We will be trying to see whether we can trade. So last but not least for review, we do have the US dollar against the Canadian dollar. So for this one, on Friday, we're trying to see whether we could get buys. Unfortunately, there were no clear buying opportunities on this one. The market just came down. So Friday morning, price was here. We're expecting a pullback. The pullback came in. The buyers were nowhere to be seen. They didn't really show up. Price broke to the downside, came all the way back till within this region right here, and consider the market is struggling to pick up off this region right here. Whether the buys happen or not, this particular currency pair is off our case today. Unfortunately, it's not really something that we will be trying to see whether we can trade, because you could easily sign up for issues and the market could be held hostage within that region, just above that support region. So we won't be signing up for that. So that's pretty much it in terms of the currency pairs that we had on Friday that unfortunately did not make it to our watch list this morning. So right now we're going to move on and we're going to start looking at the currency pairs that we do have today. So this is the watch list for today. Feel free to take note of that. On the economic front today, there isn't that much that's going to be happening during the London session. Consider the news events start off from the US session from around 3. So you can see some card news events, some USD news events as well. You know, one card news event right there, more USD news events. So let's see what happens. You could find the markets a bit slow, maybe during the London session. And if that ends up being the case, at least you will understand that that's due to the fact that the economic calendar doesn't really have that much that the market, could be working with. But at least during the US session, hopefully we should get the market moving. So we're going to start off with the Swiss franc pairs. And we're going to mix and match up the Swiss franc with everything on the buy side, then do the yen pairs. They're the only two currency pairs on the sell side. Then after that, we look at the indices and the commodities. And of course, today being a Monday, we don't really end up showcasing screenshots. But, thank you so much for all the guys who made a point of sending in screenshots on Friday. We did see them and we're happy. If you do get any trades in today, feel free to send in your screenshots. Our contact details there in the video description. Definitely we'll be showcasing them tomorrow, giving you the much needed shout out and also giving you the much needed advice if we do see something you possibly need to change to make your trading that much better. So contact details are right there. You can send them in to us via WhatsApp. So jumping straight into the first currency pair. So this is the euro against the Swiss franc. So for this one, also a currency pair we had on Friday, and we wanted to see whether we could get some buying opportunities. So you can see on Friday what the game plan was. So these are the three areas I had pointed out. In the morning, price was here. I wanted to see price move to the upside, possibly break and hold above here for us to look for buys. Unfortunately, we just couldn't get price coming back in within this region. But you can see that the market did go to the upside. Then during the US session, some pullback happened. And you can see that even during the Asian session, was still on the pullback. There was also this other region down here that I was expecting possibly to get the market coming back in. Fortunately, that didn't happen. So for today, let's see what happens within these three regions right here. So these are the three areas we will be watching out for. So hopefully we do get the market just coming back in within this region and tapping within this area, watching out for the times to see what happens. We could get some very, very good buying opportunities down within here. Maybe during the London session. I mean, if the market comes back in within here, by around 11, 11:30, 12, within those times that we get a sign of the big boys showing up, we could potentially try and see whether we could get buys. If that doesn't happen, then we'll have to wait for the US session, from around 3, 4:30. Those times we could find maybe that's when the big boys. You can't see that on Friday they really pushed the market to the upside. Potentially, maybe at around those times they could be back. So let's wait and see what happens. Definitely, we'll need to watch out for this region right here because this seems like some sort of a massive probe. But of course, if we do break to the upside, I mean, you could target all the way high up here because, I mean, when the big boys do come back in, they will possibly be trying to break the previous record, which is somewhere within here. But definitely you will need to manage your trade within this area right here because, like I'm pointing out, this is a massive probe. Definitely tells us that there are a bunch of sellers who are sitting there and they could give you some sort of issues. So watch out for that. Also watch out for the region at the bottom. In case the market needs that price, then at least we also should be ready for that, but aware that that's going to be the last area where we will be attempting our aggressive buying opportunities. So moving on into the next one, this is the New Zealand dollar against the Swiss franc. So for this one, on Friday, we're trying to see whether we could get some buying opportunities. So you can't see the three areas that I had pointed out and the highlighted areas. I know it's a bit confusing considering the fact that the levels have moved. So there was this region here, there was this area here, and this area down here. So Friday morning price was here, and it was either priced to come back in all the way to within here, or possibly there was also this region right here that I had pointed out, the blue SNR, and I pointed out that at least in case the market breaks to the upside of this area and holds above here, if you look for buys when price is holding just above this region, at least you could be much better off than looking for the buys when the market came down here, because I had pointed out that you possibly could get into some sort of range, within here, and you could be taken for some sort of a ride. So at least the market did break to the upside, held above the blue SNR, and you can see that off this area, the market actually pushed itself off that region to the upside. So for this one, for today, the levels that we're going to be watching out for, and the three areas we will be attempting our buys, and also regions where we can manage our trades, are these three areas right here. So hopefully you can take note of that. Right now, the market just seems like it's breaking, or it's just broken to the upside and it's just sitting, somewhere within this region. Might not really be the best of buying opportunities because this could easily be a trap. But at least if we do see maybe a bit more, either the market attempting to come to the downside, because it might just come in, just tap within this region here, especially to stop out all those late buyers who are checking in on buys right now. Because, I mean, it's very obvious. The whole world can see this chart. And of course, very many people are definitely attempting to see whether they can get buys within here, stop somewhere within here. So you could also find that the market could just dip down within this region right here. And if that ends up being the case and it comes back in strong and holds within here, I think if you look for the buys at that point in time within this region, those buys will possibly be much, much safer than possibly attempting buys right now. It could easily end up getting stopped out. So watch out for that. Also watch out for the region at the bottom. It's a bit of a long shot in terms of the market getting there, but if it does find its way there, and if the big boys do need that price, then at least you should be ready for that as well. So the next one, this is the Great British Pound against the Swiss franc. So for this one, on Friday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buys as well. So you can see the three areas I had pointed out and what the game plan was. So Friday morning price was here. It was either price to come back in within this region, somewhere within here for us to look for buys, or possibly break above here and possibly hold. And maybe we could have looked for more conservative buying opportunities. But I also had pointed out this blue SNR right here, where I had pointed out that in case, let's say we don't get price coming back in within here, maybe somewhere within this region, you could look for buys. And you can see that during the London market open at exactly 11, price was back in within this region. The market went up, tapped within that region, attempted to go up higher. Unfortunately, couldn't. But you can see that the market is somehow getting into some sort of range. So for this one, the levels are exactly the same as what we were watching out for on Friday. So the conservative at the top, semi-aggressive conservative within there, and aggressive down within this area right here. The blue SNR, we still could keep that there. Although I'm thinking maybe the next time when price comes back in within this region, it might just possibly need to go for a much better price. And I think possibly that could put price back in within this region. But of course, in case the sellers do run out of steam within here and you find, signs that the buyers are starting to show up within that area, you still can't possibly try and get some buying opportunities within there, because based on the fact that we're in a range, it's always best to get your buys at the bottom of the range. And based on the market structure, it does seem like the buyers are somehow within this area right here. So you could watch out for that. But definitely as the market comes up, you need to watch out for this region right here. You will need to do some money management, or else you could easily end up getting taken back to square one, and all your profits could easily end up getting eaten up. So make sure that you watch out for that. So the next one, this is the Australian dollar against the Swiss franc. So for this one, also a currency pair we had on Friday, and wanted to see whether we could get some buying opportunities as well. So these are the three areas I had pointed out. So in the morning, price was somewhere here. We're expecting just to get some sort of a pullback, just coming back in within this region. Unfortunately, we just couldn't get the sellers within here to react and push the market just a bit lower, just to come back in within here. But you can see that the market broke this region to the upside, pulled back in, tapped within this area right here and continued to rally up. And of course, when the market broke to the upside, unfortunately, there wasn't much of a pullback within this region here. So we're expecting maybe we might just get price coming back in within this area here. So we'll have that region as a semi-aggressive conservative region, and these two other regions here. So we've adjusted the areas accordingly, based on what the story of price is telling us. Hopefully we'll get that pullback coming in. If we get at least a nice pullback, we can read back within this region here. I think some proper buys could happen off here as the market comes back in for a retest of this area. But there are also a bunch of buyers who are sitting here. You can't see that the market did push itself off this region to the upside, which means that there are also some big buyers who are sitting within this area. And the market could easily come back in within that region, and we could find some proper buying opportunities. So we just need to watch out for the times. And of course, no matter what you do, make sure that you do trade with a stop loss and stick within your risk parameters at all times. So moving on into the next one. This is the US dollar against the Swiss franc. So for this one, also a currency pair we had on Friday. We're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities as well. So you can see the three regions I had pointed out, and there was also this additional level right here that I had put there. And I pointed out that for those of you that are real cowboys on the charts, if the market breaks above this region to the upside, you could look for some quick buys coming in. You can see that the market broke to the upside, pulled back in. There was some sort of a retest with a probe within there. You can see that the market did end up moving up. Unfortunately, we just couldn't get the buyers pushing above here, but you can see that this level has still been holding, even moving into today. But maybe that price might not be too sufficient, for the big boys to really come in. So we're expecting maybe the market might still pull back in a bit deeper. If that ends up being the case, we could easily find price coming back in, somewhere within this semi-aggressive conservative region that we still did have on Friday, and maybe off this area, especially after the market incites more sellers to really come into the market. That's the liquidity that the big boys need in order to hit their buys. So in case that happens and we get that pullback coming in, lots of guys who are hitting buys right now because they can see that support seems to be holding within here. This could easily be a trap, that's being laid out, by the big boys. Many guys hit buys. There are definitely stops who will be somewhere within these regions or somewhere within here. As the market comes down, many guys will get stopped out. A good number of them will start turning into sellers. When the market starts coming back in, somewhere within here, very many people and more people are definitely going to be looking for sales, only for the buyers to end up showing up. And that's how the market works. So let's see if that ends up being the case. So this is the game plan, more or less the same areas as we had on Friday. And hopefully, if the big boys do show up within here, I mean, if you do get the buys and you're targeting all the way high up within here, or even higher, it's okay. Just make sure that you also watch out for this region here, because when the market is coming up, it could easily bounce off this region to the downside, and you could get into issues. So at least if the market blasts through this region to the upside, I think at that point in time, you should be safe. So watch out for that. Also watch out for the red SNR at the bottom. In case the market finds its way back there, you still can watch out for buys. But in case the market breaks and holds beneath that region to the downside, then unfortunately there will be no trade for us on the US dollar against the Swiss franc, as well as the rest of the CHFs that we've looked at so far. So last but not least, we do have the Canadian dollar against the Swiss franc. So this is a new entrant on our watch list. So these are the three areas we will be watching out for. So right now you can see that the market is on a pullback. You can see that on Friday the market rallied up quite aggressively, found some sort of a resistance area at the top right there, which is okay. So at least some sort of pullback is coming in. You can see the lower lows and the lower highs that the sellers are making, which is good. So we just need to see how far they can come in, and hopefully they get as close as possible within this region. It's not a must that price has to come back in within here. It could even come back in within this region right here, but generally as close as possible as we can get, within this area, the better. There's a high probability it should, considering the fact that the market seems to be in some sort of an upward trend, breaks a level, comes back, to it. So it never really came back to this level. So we're really hoping to see price come back in within here to get some proper buys. If that happens, then at least you could definitely hit a buy there. Just make sure that you watch out for that region at the top right there. Definitely your next problem area, but there are also quite a number of minor SNRs, that are in between that could potentially also give you issues, but at least the major level should be somewhere within this level. But, in any case, once the market starts to give you some profits, like we always say, and starts to move in your favor, always make sure that you move your stop loss. Don't just sit there. Part of trading is not just getting entries, but it's also money management. And that's where a lot of people actually end up failing. And it can get very frustrating where you're constantly getting good trades. You have blues running on your MT4 or MT5. And unfortunately, in your history, those profits are nowhere to be seen because somewhere along the way, you always tend to fumble and lose the ball. So just make sure that you really do watch out for your money management as much as you can. So that's pretty much it for the CHF pairs. So right now we're going to move on to the yen pairs. So we're going to start off with the euro against the Japanese yen. And a good number of them are also currency pairs that we did have on Friday. So for this one, the euro against the Japanese yen, we're trying to see whether we could get some buying opportunities. And you can see the three areas, or more or less four areas I had pointed out, and the illustrations of what potentially we could have expected. So Friday morning price was here. It was either price to come back in within this region, or maybe break above here, come back in. Maybe potentially we could get some buying opportunities within here to move to the upside. And of course, in case the market broke this area to the upside and you consider the pullback came in, you could have potentially tried to get some buys within here. Those ones seem to be working more during the Asian session today, not really something that happened on Friday. But if we just go back to Friday, you can see that within this region here that I had pointed out, the market went up, tapped within there, came back in. Although this pullback right here is something that needed to be read on a smaller time frame. It's not very clear on the 15-minute time frame. It just looks like one candle coming down. But definitely on a smaller time frame, you will see that sequence of lower lows and lower highs, as the market was coming back in within that region. So if I do go down to the smaller time frame real quick, you will see, looks like one candle, but you can definitely see the sequence and the turnaround, within this area here and the market holding and so on and so forth. But at least if it's something that wasn't clear on the time frame that you look at, you also don't need to force any opportunities. So for this one, let's see what happens today. The levels are more or less the same as what we're watching out for on Friday. So price has not really moved far and beyond the areas that we had pointed out. So these are the same three areas. You can take out this region. I think considering the fact that price already came back in within there, that level is now irrelevant. So these are the three areas we will be watching out for. So right now, in terms of looking for buys, don't really look for buys now. Unless you're a real cowboy on the charts and you're maybe looking at this area, some sort of a support region that has been broken to the upside, the market is coming back in. Well, if that's how you're looking at the charts, you potentially could get some buys coming in to possibly end up attacking, this area at the top right here. But ideally, the best buys, if you want to get some proper risk to reward, I think if you let the market break above this region to the upside, you could get some good buys somewhere within there. Or if the market maybe pulls back in within this region, it still can. You can't find price coming back in within this area. Maybe the buyers need to regroup, get a much better price, maybe tap back in within this region. Maybe once they do end up showing up, maybe during the US session, you could get some very, very good buying opportunities at that point in time. So do watch out for that. Also watch out for the region at the bottom. Right there, the red SNR potentially could find the market back within there. you do find the market there, everything aligns, the big boys show up, then potentially you could get some very good buys as well. So moving on into the next one, this is the New Zealand dollar against Japanese yen. So for this one, on Friday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities as well. So you can't see the three areas I had pointed out and what the game plan was. So Friday morning price was here. I pointed out, wanted to see the market break and come back in within here for some sort of a hold. Consider the market came back in here twice before moving and pushing to the upside. And you can see that later on during the US session, that's where the market was going up. Although it was going up very, very slowly. You can see that there was no real sign of the big boys, but nonetheless, the market was just going up inch by inch, moving into the Asian session. The buyers are still attempting to push the market to the upside. So for this one, for today, let's see if we can still get some good buying opportunities. Of course, if you did get buying opportunities on Friday, then you just need to make sure that you've managed them. If you haven't closed them and you held them all through the weekend, just make sure that you manage them. But you could find some sort of a pullback coming in, especially when you're seeing the buyers really moving in this low. It means that maybe they need to invite more sellers to come in. You could easily find price coming back in within here, and maybe once that happens, that's when the big boys are really going to show up. So you could wait for that. Alternatively, what could happen is right now, since the market seems like it's broken this region to the upside, this is just the market just starting to seem like it's holding, but we definitely need to see a bit more of the story. So we could find that also the market could attempt to calm down. It doesn't necessarily have to come back in all the way to within here, but at least if we do see a sign of the big boys showing up, I think at that point in time, we could find the market really pushing to the upside. So just make sure that you watch out for that. Watch out for the region at the bottom as well. Could easily find price coming back in within there. But the yens have been showing a lot of weakness across the board. I mean, you will see that even as you continue moving down the list. So correlation is definitely in play. The big boys are definitely interested in dumping the yen. So potentially we could find the market going up higher, but at least it's always good to wait for those pullbacks to come in. So moving on into the next one, this is the Great British Pound against Japanese yen. So for this one on Friday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buys as well. So you can see the three areas I had pointed out. So Friday morning price was here. Pointed out it wasn't a good time to look for the buys when price was just holding beneath this region to the downside. And you clearly can't see why. The market did come down lower. So you can't see that during the London session, price was holding within there. There was no activity during the US session from around 3. You can't see that the market did actually start to calm down from around 3, 4:30. You can see that price did actually start to calm down. Just needed to be patient. And you can see that much later on, the market actually bounced off this region to the upside. So the proper buys were definitely down within here. So for this one, for today, these are the three areas we will be watching out for. So just a minor adjustment to the region at the bottom. So we brought it up just slightly higher. So these are the three areas we will be watching out for. In terms of buying opportunities, it's not really the best time to look for the buys. Wait and see if at least we still could get a pullback coming in. The market has reacted off here before. It can't do that again. If that happens, to some extent, it seems like the market could be getting into some sort of a range. So you could easily find maybe during the London session, we could be on the pullback, and maybe at around 3, 4:30 price could easily be back within here, and we could get some proper buys. So that's the first scenario. The other one is definitely if we get a breach of structure, and let's say the buyers do really break above this region and we get a nice pullback and a hold, then at that point in time, we could look for the buys on the other side of this level. But right now, it's a bit risky. Sellers are still within this region. They reacted before. They can't react again. So let's just give them the benefit of doubt. So watch out for the region at the bottom as well. If the market finds its way all the way back within there, then at least we still should be looking for buying opportunities. But if the market breaks and holds beneath that region to the downside, then unfortunately we'll have to fall back on those buying opportunities. So moving on into the next one, this is the Australian dollar against Japanese yen. So for this one on Friday, we're trying to see whether we could get buys as well. So you can see what the game plan was. Friday morning price was here. We're expecting the pullback. That didn't happen. Or maybe the market breaking and holding above here. But this one was a bit tricky. You can see that the market just broke and just sat on this level for an extended period of time and then started to move to the upside very slowly. Something similar to what we've seen on the New Zealand dollar against the Japanese yen. So for this one, let's see whether we can get another pullback coming in. So these are the three areas we will be trying to see whether we can get buying opportunities, and also the areas that we will also be trying to see whether we can manage our trades. Right now, in terms of looking for the buys, not really the best of ideas. Let's try and hope that we can get some sort of pullback, at least if the market moves away from that region at the top to the downside, and hopefully comes back in somewhere as close as possible within here. It doesn't necessarily have to come back in within here. You also could find maybe price might just come back in within this region, because it depends on if the yen can actually end up getting some fighting strength, because right now it's just getting hammered across the board. If it can at least find some fighting strength and get some sort of a proper pullback coming in, then hopefully if we get the price somewhere as close as possible within these regions here, I think there could be a very good buy. So that could be the first scenario. Alternatively, the market continues to move up higher. I don't really think I would advise you to really end up chasing those buys, because the higher it goes, especially without giving proper pullbacks, the riskier it gets. It doesn't mean that the trades could work or they won't work. I mean, definitely guys who could hit buys there, the buys could work. But there's added risk to it. And when it comes to trading, you always need to factor in your risk when you're taking any trade. So it's better off the market breaks to the upside. If we can get a proper pullback, if the market comes back in within here, then at least at that point in time, we could try and see whether we could get some conservative buying opportunities. So watch out for that. Also watch out for the region at the bottom. It's a bit of a long shot, but also watch out for correlation. If you find a pullback coming in on one of the yens, also have a look at the rest of the yens. At least if you see the pullbacks also coming in on them, it means that the big boys are definitely in play. And of course, when they turn, they possibly could end up turning together, which is a good thing, because that will give you that much more needed confidence in terms of you jumping in on any of the yens. If you can mitigate your risk and you can calculate your risk well, you could spread out your risk across a number of yens. But also on the other hand, don't really jump in on too many yens at the same time, because we have about 6 yens. And if you jump in on all of them, if they do work out together, then that's good. You'll get a handful of pips, a handful of money. Alternatively, if things go wrong and you're in on 6 yens, I think you're not going to be starting off your week very well. So just make sure that you really focus on that, or maybe jump in on the yens that are possibly giving you the best risk to reward. You don't really need to jump in on all of them, but at least by looking at correlation, that will give you the confidence to know that the big boys are actually interested. So whichever yen you pick, at least you'll have that at the back of your mind. Just that comfort knowing that at least there's a high probability that your trade will work out. So moving on into the next one. This is the US dollar against the Japanese yen. So for this one, on Friday, we're trying to see whether we could get some buys. So you can't see the 3 areas I had pointed out, which are the exact same areas we do have for today. So Friday morning price was here. We wanted to see price come back in within this region here. So it first went up, tapped within this region, came back down, and patience is all you need when it comes to trading. And you can't see that eventually price came back in, tapped within this region. We're expecting maybe some sort of a pullback, because this was a major level. And off this region here, you can see that the market did actually push to the upside. Although the market going up really struggled, it only came to tap in within this region today morning. So let's see if we can get another pullback coming in. This one seems almost similar to the Great British Pound against the Japanese yen. Right now, we're within a seller's region. So let's wait and see if we can get a pullback coming in. When we do end up plotting these levels and we tell guys to wait for the pullback to come in within here, sometimes it seems like a long shot and it feels like maybe the market is just not going to get there. And you feel like you should just possibly end up taking a buy. Don't let your mind interfere with reality, because the fact of the matter is the market will always give pullbacks. It doesn't necessarily have to come back in within here, but don't let FOMO get you. So let's wait and see. Price could easily be here. Then you could find that at about 3, 430, 5, 6, you could easily find price back within here and you could get some very, very good buying opportunity. You just need to be patient. So wait for that. Alternatively, if that doesn't happen, wait for price to break above this region to the upside. If we do get a nice pullback, especially after a nice strong breach on the pullback, I mean, if price is within here during the US session, then at that point in time, you could definitely end up getting some very, very good buying opportunities. So patience is key. getting your trades within proper levels. Like we always say, buy with buyers, sell with sellers. The reason why we say that is because that increases the probability of your trades working out. It's never a guarantee that trades are going to work out in trading, and that's the reason why we always trade with stop losses and stick within our risk. But at least there are certain things you can do to increase the probability and the chances of your trades working out. So part of that is definitely buying with buyers and selling with sellers. So moving on into the next one, this is the Canadian dollar against the Japanese yen. So this is a new entrant on our watch list, and we're going to be trying to see whether we could get some buying opportunities. So right now you can see that the market is high up within a resistance area. And like I just pointed out, you don't really want to buy with sellers. That's not how things work. So we will be waiting to see if we can get a pullback coming in. What we do know for a fact is that there are definitely buyers who are somewhere within here, which means that since we're looking for buyers, our teammates are the rest of the buyers, and where they're sitting right now is definitely somewhere within this region here. So we'll be waiting to see whether we can get the sellers doing their thing, maybe during the London session. During the US session, if we do get the price back in within this region, then I guess we could potentially get some very, very good buying opportunities within that region there. So we just need to be patient. Alternatively, if the market breaks above this region to the upside, and let the big boys do the heavy lifting. It's them who break levels, and they don't really need your help. So let them do the heavy lifting on the pullback. You take the soft life as far as trading goes. Wait for the pullback. When the market comes back in within here, at least you could get a very good buy coming up. Just target the area where the market gets high up until, when it breaks to the upside, or at least even if you will be targeting areas higher, then you just need to make sure that your money management is on point. As the market is moving up, make sure that you also do move your stop losses. So let's see what happens. So these are the three areas. And of course, watch out for the region at the bottom. In case the market finds its way back within there, then you should also be ready for that as well. So that's pretty much it in terms of all the currency pairs. So we've mixed and matched them up. So right now we're going to move on to the indices and the commodities. So you can see that there's no change on that front. So we'll start off with the NAS 100, which we were watching out for selling opportunities on Friday. So these are the three areas, or more or less four areas that I had pointed out. So for as long as we're holding beneath this region to the downside, we're still watching out for sells. So Friday morning, price was somewhere within this region here. And I had pointed out there was an SNR somewhere within here where you could find that in case the market and the buyers did attempt to break above here, and possibly the sellers did show up, could have potentially looked for the sells there. But unfortunately, you can't see that the sellers were nowhere to be seen. There's no sign of any big seller. If you look at what happened within here, there was really no sign of the sellers there. They were just not interested. So the market broke to the upside, came back in. It's like it tapped just back in within this region, and you can see that the buyers really pushed to the upside. So let's see what happens on this one today. So the levels are the same. Can take out this region, or more or less, let me just keep it there, because on your way down, maybe you will need to watch out for that region in terms of your money management. But in terms of the other major levels that we did have, these are the three areas that you definitely need to watch out for. So let's see what happens. Right now, the market came back in within here. Let's see what these sellers have to say. You can see that the market is now starting to hold to the downside. It's not very convincing quite yet in terms of whether this could be the big boy, but let's see a bit more of what happens. You could find that maybe the buyers might attempt to push up higher before the big sellers really show up again, and hopefully we could get the market coming down, but also watch out for somewhere within this region, which is more or less the same area that we had on Friday. You could easily find the market maybe bouncing off this area. So in as much as you could be targeting, or we could be targeting down here, just make sure that you really watch out for this area right here. So watch out for that. Also watch out for the region at the top. I mean, in case the buyers do show up and the sellers have nothing to say and the market holds within this region, especially after holding to the downside for this extended period of time and then starts to hold above, there's a possibility we could get price maybe moving up higher. It's not a guaranteed price we'll get within here. And that's the reason why I wouldn't advise guys to look for the buying opportunities. Just targeting all the way high up here. You could easily find that the buys might really start to work only to get somewhere within here before the sellers do show up, and you could easily end up getting stopped out. So let's just wait and see what happens. But since I know some of you are real cowboys on the charts, you'll still end up looking for buys, which is okay, but just make sure that you know that the buying opportunities are counters. So moving on into the next one, which is the Dow Jones. So for this one, on Friday, we're also trying to see whether we could get some sells. So you can't see the three areas I had pointed out. Unfortunately, there were no clear selling opportunities on this one. Seems like the market and the buyers were still fighting. So Friday morning, price was somewhere here. We're expecting price to come back in within this region here. Maybe get a sign of the big boy sellers. Clearly, you can't see there was no sign of any big sellers showing up. So the market broke to the upside, came back in. You can see that it bounced off here and the buyers really pushed to the upside quite aggressively. So right now we're back within this region and you can see that the big sellers who are holding the market are sitting within here. So we'll be waiting to see if they will get the market moving. Maybe they're getting ready. Maybe we could get the market moving during the US session. Who knows? So we'll just have to wait and see if we can't get a sign of the big sellers showing up. There is no clear sign just yet, but you can see that there was some sort of a gap within here. So you could fill that up with maybe a red candlestick, coming down. The market is back within some sort of a mini buyers area within here, but we'll be waiting to see what happens. If those buyers can fight, maybe slow down on their way up and the sellers do show up, I think we could easily end up getting a good selling opportunity and you could easily find price coming back down till within here. The sellers within this area have pushed the market down till within this area, and even all the way down till within here. They've done that before. They can't do that again. So let's wait and see what happens. But in case the market breaks and holds above this region to the upside, especially if we get a nice strong breach to the upside of this area, and the market comes back in, maybe even attempts to come back to the downside of this area and it's unsuccessful, then at that point in time, we'll start to look for buying opportunities and our buyers will shift from looking for sells into buyers. So watch out for that. Let's wait and see what happens. But right now, based on how things stand, we're still trying to see whether we can get some selling opportunities for as long as we're holding beneath that red SNR. So moving on into the next one, which is the second last thing we look at, which is silver. So for silver, on Friday, we're trying to see whether we could get some buying opportunities. So you can see what the three areas were, which are the same three areas that we do have today. Friday morning price was here, pointed out that it wasn't a very good idea to end up looking for buying opportunities when the market was high up there. There was a high probability price was going to come back in within this region because this was a major SNR. After the market broke to the upside, there was a high likelihood that price was going to come back in within here. So you can see that the market really struggled. Remember, I had pointed out chart patterns. For those of you that look at chart patterns, I put a line somewhere within here and I pointed out that maybe there was a possibility price could break to the upside, but you shouldn't really rely too much on chart patterns because you can see that the market seemed like it was going up. The sellers showed up, the market pulled back, it came back to an SNR region, bounced off this area, and you can see that it's going to the upside. So for this one, let's see if we could get price breaking above this region to the upside. I wouldn't really recommend you to look for buying opportunities now because if you're looking for buys now, you're very late to the party. You're better off not showing up. So it's either the market either breaks above this region to the upside. If it does, and we get a proper pullback, coming in that we can't read, then possibly we could try and get some proper and conservative buying opportunities, at that point in time. So if we get something like that, potentially we could try and see whether we could get some buying opportunities within here on the pullback, but also give these sellers the benefit of doubt. There's a possibility price could come back in. I mean, we do have a bunch of sellers who are sitting within there, and you could easily find price coming back, maybe all the way down to within here. Still a possibility. Price can come back in within there, but there's also an SNR somewhere within here that if I do point out, then I think it's going to become also much clearer to see that there's also some sort of a range that's happening within here with a probe to the downside, a probe to the upside. So also somewhere within this region might actually not be too bad in terms of looking for the buys. You're better off looking for the buys somewhere within this area here than looking for the buys high up within this region right here, because we have a bunch of sellers who are sitting within these regions right here. So watch out for that. Also watch out for the region at the bottom. Remember that for as long as we're holding above the red SNR, we're still going to be watching out for buying opportunities. The market can go all the way down to within that region. And I mean, even if it goes all the way down there, for as long as we're still holding above that red SNR, it's still valid, to look for the buying opportunities. But at least in case the market breaks and holds beneath the red SNR, then at that point in time, we'll shift our bias and start looking for sells. So last but not least, we do have gold. So for gold, for this one on Friday, we're watching out for buying opportunities. So the levels are the same as what we had on Friday, but before we even map them out for today, you can't see what happened on Friday. So Friday morning price was here. we're expecting the market to pull back in within this region right here. So unfortunately, the pullback didn't happen, but you can see that the market went to the upside and broke above, tapped that region, came back in for a very fast pullback. Just coming back in within this region here. After that, the buyers struggled, pushed to the upside, and you can see that the sellers pushed the market down. But gold did actually hit 3,000, which was history in the making. So we're more or less now, really knocking at this level right here to try and see whether we could end up going much, much higher. So let's see if history is going to be made again this week. So for the first time in history, gold actually hit $3,000 an ounce, which is crazy. So let's see what happens this week. But also on this one, you can see that there's some sort of range that's happening, because you can see that somewhere within this region here, we do have some sort of buyers who are holding. You can see that the buyers push to the upside. Sellers are sitting somewhere within this region right here. So let's see if we could get price potentially coming back in. Let's give those sellers the benefit of doubt. If the market comes back in somewhere within here and you do get a clear sign to get some buys, let's say if you do see the signs of the big boys showing up and the sellers slowing down, you could get a quick buy from here coming up. But I'm really hoping price comes in a bit deeper, just like we saw on silver. At least if we get a proper pullback coming in, I think this proper pullback might actually be what might be needed, because also a lot of people worldwide are trying to see whether they could get buying opportunities on gold. Everyone is looking for a buy. The big boys definitely know that. So when a pullback comes in, especially after the market has been going up for a significant amount of time, that means that a lot of people are going to get stopped out and they start looking for trades in the opposite direction. Once that happens, that's when the market will end up getting enough liquidity, for it to actually end up possibly moving up higher. So do watch out for that, but definitely the levels are more or less the same. The bust is still to try see whether we could get some buying opportunities for as long as we're holding above that red SNR. So I guess that's pretty much it in terms of everything. So hopefully you've taken note of that and everything else we've discussed. In case anything wasn't too clear, but at least you can rewatch and skip bits and pieces on YouTube. And of course, if anything is still not clear enough, you still can end up reaching out to us. For more information, you also can check out our website, www.afriforex.com. We sorted out a couple of issues we had. For the guys who were unable to access the masterclass, you should be able to access that. I think that should be fine now. And also a couple of offers that we also did end up adding in there. So you can also end up checking them out. A lot of guys have been asking about bundling things up. So we've also bundled things up so that it makes things much easier. At least someone can end up knowing how much you do require to jump from one course to another, or if you want to know what's the full package for the training, then you definitely can also end up finding that information. So if you do go to Academy section, you will find all the offers that we've put in there. So also try to put in as much information as possible so you can end up checking them out, and the various costs are definitely there and how much you also can end up saving. So feel free to also check that out and enroll at whichever course you find fit. So looking at the chat box to see if there are any queries, I'm just seeing Ivy Wanyama there saying, good morning, team. Good morning, Ivy. Hope you're well. Glad to see you here. So karibu sana. So I'm not really seeing anything much. So I guess we can't call it a session, not a day, because the day is just beginning. And hopefully you will get some good opportunities on the charts. If you do get any good trades or bad trades, feel free to send them in to us. Our contact details are there. And also feel free to reach out to us. And like I pointed out, also feel free to visit www.afriforex.com for more information and for more insights. So I guess we will see you guys tomorrow. So with that, happy trading, guys, and bye for now. May the peeps be with you. God bless.